blood of Jesus! I can't do that. I will never try such a thing. So this is who you are? God forbid. In fact, let me get out of this evil car. I don't want to hear such things. She stepped out of my car and was about to close the door when I told her, I will give you 50 million naira if you get it for me. Sometimes, the price of wealth is more than we ever imagined. How far would you go to keep what you've gained? Let's dive into part 6 of our story. I immediately got up, and as I was about to leave the party, my throat suddenly felt tight. Before I knew it, I collapsed to the ground and started making strange sounds. I couldn't stop myself, and people around me watched in shock. Some even took out their phones and recorded the scene. My video spread quickly, and soon people were talking about me everywhere. For a whole month, I couldn't bring myself to go out or attend any events. I was too ashamed. Some people even concluded that I was involved in a ritual. Then, one morning, just as I woke up, the strange sounds started again. I began making noises and knocking things over in my house, as if I was struggling with something unseen. When it finally stopped, I was so exhausted. Suddenly, I heard loud, aggressive knocks at my door. My heart pounded. As I opened the door, officers suddenly burst in. They looked around, surprised at how scattered my house was. 3 officers walked into my room and began searching everywhere, turning things upside down. After a while, they came out holding different soaps and several sponges. One of the officers then said, "Sir, we found exactly what we were told. These items look suspicious. This guy is not clean at all. We need to take him to the station for further investigation." Before I knew it, they had already put handcuffs on my wrists. They all gathered in my living room. The senior officer then told me that if I wanted to resolve the matter quickly, cooperating with them could make things easier for me. I already understood what he meant. I told them to remove the handcuffs from my wrists. Instead of arguing, I quickly brought out my phone and handled the situation as they expected. Immediately, their attitude changed and they started hailing me. One officer pulled me aside and told me that Judith was the one who had reported me, claiming I was involved in ritualistic activities. I simply nodded and said, "No problem." Then, I invited the officers to sit down. I treated them well, offering them drinks from my bar. They ate and drank, and soon the conversation turned friendly. Without them knowing, I secretly took a picture of the officers while they were enjoying themselves. Then, I opened my WhatsApp and saw that Judith had posted a picture of her and a new man on her status. It was a photo of her with a new man, and she captioned it, "Forever mine." I smirked and replied to her status with the picture of the officers in my house. Along with it, I sent her a message. "It's not who scores the first goal that wins the match." Judith responded immediately. "I haven't even started with you yet," she wrote. "By the time I'm done, you'll have no choice but to confess everything to the world." I clenched my jaw. This had gone too far. I called Baba and told him what Judith had done. I also told him I needed to put an end to her threats. Baba sighed and said, "The gods have already decided Judith's fate, so nothing can be done to her spiritually. However, if you want to handle the situation another way, that is up to you." I exhaled deeply. "I understand," I said. "I won't unalive her, but I need to teach her a lesson and make sure she pays for her actions. It was because of her stubbornness that made me lost my mother." Without wasting time, I picked up my phone and called Reza. I instructed him to bring Judith to Baba's shrine. The next day, he called to confirm that the job was done. I immediately contacted Baba, who assured me that Judith was at the shrine. I settled him and rushed over. When I arrived, Judith was sitting there, looking weak and exhausted. Baba's shrine was busy with visitors, so I asked his assistant to take Judith to the back, away from prying eyes. I looked at her, remembering everything she had done to me, the betrayals, the pain, and the chaos she brought into my life. I knew I couldn't let her walk away freely. Baba's assistant handed me a small bottle. "This will ensure she never crosses your path again," he said. I stepped closer to Judith and whispered, "This is for everything you did to me." Then, I poured the liquid over her legs. She shivered as the liquid touched her skin, her body reacting instantly. By the time I was done, Judith was too weak to move. I called the guys to take her back to where they brought HT from. A driver arrived, helped her into the car, and sped off into the night. The next day, I heard that she had been taken to the hospital. The doctor said she had suffered a terrible shock and might never fully recover. A small, satisfied smile crept onto my face. My special soap for my midnight ritual had finished, so I went to see Baba and told him about it. He nodded and said, "This time, You must bring something directly from the hospital. Baba's eyes darkened as he leaned closer. Find a woman going through a powerful transformation, one filled with pain and struggle. Bring me something that carries the essence of that moment. I opened my mouth in shock. Without realizing it, I blurted out, "It looks like these gods are crazy. It seems they have lost their minds." Baba quickly warned me, "Dennis, watch your mouth. Be careful with your words so you don't get into trouble. The gods are listening to everything we say right now." I scoffed and replied, "If they are listening, what does that have to do with me? This task is beyond difficult. I can't do it, Baba. Please give me another task. I don't care how you get it, Dennis, and must warn you, never return empty-handed or else you already know what will happen." My confidence suddenly went up and I started arguing with Baba. I didn't even know where I got that boldness from. Baba's assistant stepped out and told me to watch how I talked to Baba. I shouted at him too. I was about to walk out of the shrine when I realized it was Baba I had just spoken to like that. Immediately, I turned back and told him I would do it. The devil is indeed a deceiver. Don't let life frustrate you to the point where you start thinking of quick riches through dark means because you will regret it in the end. You might enjoy it for a while, that's for sure, but your end will be disastrous. You won't have a good ending. I deeply regretted my actions. God, please come to my rescue. When I got home, I kept thinking, how do I start? Where do I begin? Who can I ask to help me get what Baba asked for? I had only 5 days left. I couldn't just sit back and wait for Baba's punishment. I started brainstorming, and suddenly, I remembered a nurse who once treated me during my NYSC days. I called that number several times, but it was switched off. I kept trying the next day, but it was still the same. I had no choice but to drive to the hospital. No matter what, I had to find her. When I got to her former workplace, they told me she had moved. I collected her new address and drove straight to her place. When I reached the address I was given, I parked my car and thoughts started running through my mind. What if she turns me down and decides to report me to the police? I wanted to reverse my car and go back home, but my life was already at risk. I decided to go ahead with my plan, no matter the outcome. I stepped out of the car and knocked on her gate. She was very happy to see me. After exchanging pleasantries, I told her there was something important I needed to discuss with her and asked if we could talk inside my car. She followed me to the car and then I began. "Nurse Precious, there's something I want to talk to you about, but I don't know how you will react." "What is it?" "Feel free to tell me. We've known each other for a long time. If it's something I can do, I'll tell you." "It's hard for me to say, but I'll still tell you. I need your help to get." Immediately I mentioned it. She screamed loudly. "Blood of Jesus! I can't do that. I will never try such a thing. So this is who you are? God forbid. In fact, let me get out of this evil car. I don't want to hear such things." She stepped out of my car and was about to close the door when I told her, "I will give you 50 million naira if you get it for me." Never underestimate the power of money. As soon as she heard the amount, it was as if her whole body froze. She stood still. From her reaction, it was clear that she needed the money. She looked around, then got back into the car and locked the door. "What you're asking for is beyond my power, and I could get into serious trouble if I'm caught. No one will catch you. I will fly you to London immediately after. This is not as easy as you think. I need time to think it over." I collected her new number and gave her mine. She got down from my car. "Nurse Precious, please. I don't have much time. Think about it quickly and make sure you give me a favorable response." She said she would try her best. I just prayed and hoped she would be able to deliver for me. A day before my deadline, Nurse Precious called me and asked me to come and meet her. She sent me the hospital's address and I didn't waste time. I went there immediately. When I arrived, I called her. She came outside and told me that a woman had walked into the hospital alone. Then, she showed me a mango tree and told me to park under it and wait for her. She promised to bring me the stuff as soon as she gets it. In my mind, I was praying for her not to fail me. She then told me she couldn't do this with a clear mind. She took a deep breath, looked away for a moment, and then turned back to me. "Are you really sure about this?" she asked. I nodded, and after a long pause, she finally said, "All right, but I need something to steady myself first." I reached into the back seat and handed her a bottled drink. She took a few sips, exhaled sharply, then placed the bottle down. "Send part of what we discussed now," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You can send the rest when I've done my part." I didn't hesitate. I immediately sent her the first part of what we discussed. She glanced at her phone, took a deep breath, and then walked back into the clinic. I waited for nearly 2 hours, growing more anxious by the minute. Finally, Nurse Precious hurried out, carrying a black polythene bag. She handed it to me quickly and whispered, "Wait, here!" About 30 minutes later, she returned with another bag and handed it over with shaky hands. As soon as she did, she yanked open the car door and got in. "Drive now, just go," she urged, her voice low but firm. From the way she acted, it was clear she didn't want to stay there any longer. After driving a reasonable distance, I transferred the remaining balance and assured her that I would contact my travel agent to start processing her papers immediately. As a token of appreciation, I also sent her an extra amount for a job well done. I advised her to stay in a hotel until everything was finalized. After dropping her off, I checked the time. It was 11 p.m. I knew better than to drive that late. Dealing with the Nigerian police was not on my list of problems. So, I booked a hotel room for the night and set my alarm. By 4 a.m., I was up, took a quick bath, and hit the roads before dawn. I drove straight to Baba's shrine. As soon as I arrived, I took the package and handed it to him. Baba's face lit up as he praised me, calling me a real man. I just stared at him thinking, "Don't worry, God is watching you." With careful hands, Baba blended the elements carefully to create the special soap. Then, he gave it to me with specific instructions. "Go to the stream behind the shrine," he said. "Bathe with the sponge and let the water wash away your struggles. You will see a transformation in your life." I followed his instructions and completed the ritual as directed. That month, my cash flow was unbelievable. It was steady money back to back. The money was too much. I didn't even know what to do with it anymore. I became so frustrated that I wish I could see someone to exchange life with. I really don't care about the money anymore. I just wanted a peaceful life, where I live freely without any struggles and demands. After 2 months, my special soap finished, and I became restless. What would the next task be? I thought to myself. I took a deep breath, said a short prayer, and then drove to Baba's shrine. Baba looked at me and said, "This time, the task will be easier. You won't have to do anything extreme, but the gods require something personal from you. 3 of your toes." "What? 3 toes?" I shouted. "I'd rather face anything else than lose a part of my body." Baba chuckled and shook his head. "So, you value your body, but did you ever stop to think about the things you've done in pursuit of wealth? Every action has consequences, and the gods always take their share. You must decide. Will you pay the price or turn away from everything you've gained?" I glared at Baba, fists clenched. Without another word, I stormed out and headed straight to my car. Just as I was about to start the engine, Baba's assistant knocked on my window. I rolled it down, and he leaned in. "Baba said I should tell you that if you leave now, the next time you return, the price will be even higher." I scoffed and shook my head. "Tell Baba that I've made my decision. I won't continue this path." I started my car, slammed the accelerator, and sped off, leaving a cloud of dust in Baba's assistant's face. Dear viewers, the pursuit of wealth without limits often leads to a path of no return. When people chase riches through questionable means, they become trapped in a cycle where each gain comes with a greater sacrifice. True wealth is not just about money, but about peace of mind, integrity, and the ability to sleep without fear. Remember, shortcuts to success often come with hidden dangers. Do you think anything will happen to Dennis now that he has refused to obey Baba's instructions? Or will he find a way to escape his fate? Let's find out in the final episode.